The deep state is real. They're at the State Department, and they are here to stuff up, and I clean that up. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. And in case you've missed it, Project Veritas released its very latest video just on Tuesday morning, featuring State Department employee, let me make sure I get his name right, Stuart Carafa, and his shocking admission caught on tape, apparently half drunk at a bar somewhere in the Washington, D.C. area. Let's go ahead and run this first clip.
I work for the State Department.
You could do dancing for us.
Yeah, and I do. I'm careful about it. I don't leave a paper trail. Like, I leave emails. Any crap that comes up, I leave that until after 5:30. But as soon as like 5:31 hits, got my draft messages ready.
Scott, you see that, especially with the not so sneaky ways he finds to get around the law. Is it really this easy to work against your own boss in the White House?
Yes.
Oh, good.
It's quite easy. I mean, you think about the size and scope of the federal government.
Yeah.
I mean, who's watching these people? I mean, this is vast, even if you don't count the U.S. military. There's just so many people out there. It boggles the mind to think of how many employees we have at the federal level. I was particularly fascinated by, when I watched the Project Veritas video, fascinated by the idea that somehow you're in compliance with federal guidelines if you don't send email for your political purposes. He's part of the team that runs the local Democratic Socialists. If you don't actually send the email on work time, but when you clock out at 5 or 5:30, you've already got that all the emails drafted. And so
and he just hits send as soon as the clock runs out.
That's right, which you did on the clock, and then you send them after hours. Who would ever say anything about it? And the confidence. I mean, if I were engaged in behavior like that, which A, I can't imagine, but B, if you were doing something like that, wouldn't you kind of keep it on the down low? I mean, would you start blabbering about it in a Washington, D.C. or Georgetown bar or wherever they were? I mean, it just sounds like that would be, he wasn't that drunk,
Yeah, he wasn't slurring his words. He'd obviously had a couple of cocktails, but he was not falling down drunk. He was clearly lucid and all the rest, just relaxed enough to let his true inner jerk reveal itself in front of a hidden camera. I want to run this next clip before I get to your question, Bill.
I have nothing to lose. It's impossible to fire federal employees. I don't know.
But is your supervisor cool with it, or?
She doesn't know what he knows.
Bill, you might say that this is just one low-level guy. He doesn't make or affect policy or anything like that. But when you think about it, isn't it the guys closest to the ground who actually get stuff done? And apparently his superiors are completely unaware of it. Or maybe are they aware of it, Bill?
Well, first of all, I am very anxious to prove this I can't get fired theory. I am
yes.
very, very anxious to see how much actual evidence he has for this thought of his. But we're actually on the main vein here, Steve. The reason that all of this chicanery goes on is because nobody pays for it. And just as an example, since I wasn't there, I don't know what happened with the whole Kavanaugh thing, which is breaking news, as we're talking.
Yeah.
But if it turns out, this is an if it turns out that this woman is making it up, she can't remember where or what decade or anything like that. So if she is making it up, what will the consequences for her be? I know she's getting some rough mail right now, but what will the actual physical consequences be? There'll be nothing. There'll be nothing. The same way there'll be no consequences for this, although I have to say, to my just absolute delight and surprise, Reality Winner ended up getting a little bite for her. Remember that was the
5 years.
Yeah, that's discouraging. So when the Secretary of State can basically break every single security law in the nation, and have the director of the FBI stand up and list all of these things and not have charges or any consequences really at all, come legal consequences, come to her, what do you expect? What do you think you're going to get? And this is why this kind of thing has to be punished ruthlessly. Ruthlessly. It's to encourage the others, you know. I mean, it really needs to be investigated, not just for a firing offense. This guy needs to be looked at very closely, and I would go after him for. I'd look to see if there were any treason charges. I'd look to see if there was any evidence at all that he had released classified information to anybody, because if he's a member of the Socialist, Democratic Socialists of America, as far as I'm concerned, he might as well be a member of the National Socialists of America.
It's all the same.
Yeah, if you have a political ideology that is so at odds with what America is, and you're working a State Department, then there's something wrong here, and you are certainly entitled to be a member of whatever political party you want to be. But to have you inside the system that's designed by the American people for the American people, so that you can use your influence to sabotage things, and which means democracy, because Trump was elected by the American people. If your arrogance and your ego is so big that you think that you have a moral right to do that, I think that maybe one of the ways for you to get some perspective on this is to spend 10 years in federal prison. That's what I think. And I think that if this woman with the Kavanaugh thing is lying, Kavanaugh will have the class not to go after her. But I think somebody should. I think somebody should go after her for defamation. You know?
Scott, let me give you a follow-up. Bill seemed to indicate maybe he thinks that Ford's claims against Kavanaugh are pretty weak. But what prosecutor wouldn't want to have Kavanaugh on the witness stand and be able to ask him, where were you on the night of February 1983 through November 1987?
Well, this is the thing, Scott. This is the thing. This is why the vagueness of the charge helps this woman. Was it the Duke rape case where the whole case fell apart because there was evidence that
there was no party that night. Yeah.
Well, one of the people who was supposed to be raping this woman was videotaped at a time-stamped ATM withdrawing cash on the other side of town. So when you have a specific accusation against somebody, you can prove that. You conceivably anyway, you can come up with an alibi, and absolutely airtight. I was here, and so the vaguer the charge is, the less likely it is to be disproved. And then it becomes he said, she said, and we all know what the rules are in that game in this society today.
Yeah.
And I know memories are spotty at best, but especially 36 years ago. But there are the woman's story is replete with detail, and this episode isn't about this topic. But the woman's story,
I know, but that's my fault. I let it go here, and I'm okay.
With detail of the narrow staircase that she went up, and how she got pushed into a bedroom, and how loud rock music was playing, and how both Brett Kavanaugh and his associate Mark Judge, his buddy at age 17, were laughing hilariously. How Mark Judge jumped on him twice, and eventually the second time they fell off the bed, and that gave the woman a chance to escape. How everybody at the party had one beer, but Brett and Mark were very drunk, and all of this detail. Yet she can't even pin it to like a specific month, and she's not sure whose house she was at. It seems like those are two key details that would make it possible to definitively nail down these kinds of charges. And more than any other detail, those are the ones we need. When was it and where was it? And, a journalist the lead of a journalism story goes who, what, where, when, why, how, and she's got the who.
Yeah, and these false recollections, when psychologists are asking kids if they were molested and planting all of these suggestions and so on, they're not just asking them, they're, did this person touch you here? And in many cases, certainly not all of them, but in many cases you find that the child has constructed a narrative based on the questions that he or she can sense is what they want them to say, and then that narrative becomes as real as anything else. So it's possible that this whole thing has become believable to her, and of course, needless to say, it's also possible that it actually happened.
Yes.
But I have serious doubts.
Yeah, my most serious doubt is the fact that Ford never told anybody until she talked to her therapist in 2012, at around the same time that the Romney campaign, the presidential campaign, was floating Kavanaugh's name for the Supreme Court. So, I mean, this just looks like a possible setup job against Romney that is paying dividends now against Trump all these years later.
She's a Tea Party Republican, right? This woman?
No, she's a left-leaning
exactly.
Democrat.
You can only imagine my surprise.
And I saw something, I didn't have a chance to look this up, but apparently her husband may have some connection to GPS fusion. I don't know if that's a fact or not. It's something I saw on Twitter, but did not have time to check it out. Yeah. So that's out there floating around. Feel free to check on that. I know I will. All right, I'm going to bring this back to the subject at hand. Let me run you just one more short clip from Project Veritas.
Just everything.
Everything.
Every level.
Folks, we did a segment a week or two ago. I think Scott hosted it about Trump denying federal workers their 2% pay raise. And we got a lot of pushback in the comments against our enthusiasm for denying this pay raise. But you have to understand the resentment out here against federal workers. Again, not the guy at the post office, not the guy but the actual people at the State Department and the EPA and some of these other oppressive agencies who are getting away with all of this stuff because they believe they can't be held to account. And the higher up you go, by the time you get to FBI director or by the time you get to cabinet level positions, these people are completely unaccountable, so much so that the worst thing that seems to happen to them when they get caught breaking the law, get caught committing felonies, get caught trying to rig elections, the worst thing that happens to these people is they get around on the Sunday chat shows and a really lucrative book deal. Well, you know what? There's a lot of resentment against these people, and you have to understand that. We got to start at the bottom with guys like this Carafa fella on Project Veritas, but it's got to go all the way to the top. And I don't think you're going to get rid of this resentment until we see Hillary Clinton behind bars. And that day, I'm sorry to say, is a long way off. Never. All right, folks, thanks for watching. This has been Right Angle with Steve Green. That's me, Bill Whittle, and Scott Opp. Brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. If you like what you see, please click on over. Become one of our producers. We would love to have you on the team. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
At least Hillary got to watch the slave owners lose the Civil War. That's my personal, revenge.